All right, so now we are live, so we should have started recording now. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Harsha. I'm one of the RC experts at e-GMAT, and I will be one of your hosts for the session today. Assisting me in today's session is Shraddha. Shraddha will also be taking one part of the today's session, and Shraddha is one of the senior most subject matter experts at e-GMAT, so you guys are going to have a lot of fun in the session. We also have Sandeep assisting us in the session today. Sandeep is a senior strategy expert and he can help you out with all the strategy related questions which are not subject related. Sandeep can help you out with those. So today's session is about reading comprehension. So it's a fairly application oriented session. If you talk about reading comprehension specifically, we're going to talk about some particular reading strategies that can help you do much better as far as comprehending the passage is concerned. So today's session is fairly application focused. In order to help you out with that, we had sent a couple of video lessons your way. So you can see that right here, video lesson on main point 1. These are part of a free trial. So even after the session, if you feel that you learned something today and you want to explore a little further, make sure that you check out these particular links. All right. You log into your free trial, you'll be able to get access to this. Let's talk about the upcoming sessions. So every week, week in and week out, we at e-GMAT are doing these sessions, and there's a lot of benefit for serious GMAT aspirants because we're discussing a lot of interesting things that you need to know. So tomorrow we have a free GMAT quant workshop. So think of this as a proctored mock test. So it's a simulation of how your test is going to be as far as quant is concerned. You will have topics from multiple concepts. You'll have topics from multiple question types, and you will get feedback. That's the most important thing. You'll get personalized feedback on how you performed and what you need to do. And next week, next Saturday, we have our pre-thinking seminar. This is your GMAT CR webinar. Here we discuss something that we discuss pre-thinking. It's something that e-GMAT pioneered a few years ago. This is the best approach to solve assumption questions. And in fact, the entire assumption block, that's evaluate and strengthen and weaken, the core essence is still pre-thinking. So for a lot of you who are not entirely comfortable with critical reasoning, this session can be extremely useful for you. So make sure you check that out. With that, let's get to know you guys a little better. So one question that we had put out here was, when do you guys plan to take the GMAT? Another particular aspect that I would be very interested in knowing is, what is your target GMAT score? What is it that you're aiming for? And let me bring that poll as well. Fill this one as well, guys. So let's kind of understand what is the distribution of this particular class. So when I look at the first piece of data, when do you guys plan to take the GMAT? 50% of you haven't yet picked a date, or it's more than 60 days away. So that's good. You guys have a lot of time to apply what we are going to learn today. You'll find it very, very useful, especially if you have not started preparing for RC. Before you get biased with a different approach, try checking out this today's approach, today's session. There will be something useful for you. Even for those of you who are planning to take it in the next 1 month, that's another 20% of you who are planning to take the GMAT within the next month. Even for you guys, this session is definitely going to be useful. If you're not entirely comfortable with RC, if RC is a bit of a pain area for you, you'll find that what we learned today can improve your score. Apply this to around 10 to 15 passages rigorously. You can expect to see an improvement in your RC. And as far as target GMAT score is concerned, oh, like that. That's majority of the class wants that 730 plus score, which I'm very happy to see. In fact, in the next 10 minutes, we are going to talk about getting a 730 plus and why it kind of matters. So I'm very happy to see that. So that's good. That said, let's get into the core of the session today. So let me do a quick check, guys. You guys should be able to see the presentation. You should be able to see reading comprehension strategies to reach 90th percentile. If you can see that, click yes. The reason I ask this is sometimes, with everybody's internet connection, it takes a little while to load. So once you're sure that everybody can see this, then let's move on. All right, so I can see that for most of you, the screen, you can see the presentation. So I'll begin with the presentation. Thanks a lot for that. So welcome to the session, guys. You're gonna have it's a very application focused session, so pay a lot of attention. It's not much of theory, it's more of practice. So before we get into the core of the session, let's get a little bit of motivation, not just for the session, but for your overall GMAT journey. So just give me a small minute. Let me bring in my pen. All right. Yes. So before we get into the core of the session, let's get a little bit of motivation. What is it about that 730? Why do you really aspire? Why do you need to get that score of 730? How can it help you? So there are 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only, at least 3 reasons why you should try for that 730 or better score as far as the GMAT is concerned. These 3 reasons are concerned with your choice of B schools, the B schools that you can convert. It's related to the scholarships that you can get, and it's related to your future earning potential. It's as in terms of future earning potential, it could be as much as $500,000 in a 10-year span. So we're going to discuss this. Let's start with the first point, that is getting into a top B school. In the last few years, there's been an upward trend as far as the score required to get into these schools are concerned. So this is data that we have from some of the top 25 B schools on the planet. So you see some of these colleges you're aware of: Kellogg, Sloan, Columbia, Berkeley, Haas. You can see that increase in that trend towards a higher GMAT score in terms of the median score. Now, this is for out of 25 B schools that are out of the top 25 B schools, we have seen this increasing trend for 23 out of those 25 B schools. So that tells us something. Another thing, Sloan and Columbia, we also have additional stats. We have student stats from Sloan and Columbia, and it turns out that 80% of the admitted class has a score of 700 or higher. So again, that GMAT score really matters if you want to get into one of those top B schools. And remember, this is despite the fact that overall the test taking population has come down. Not as many students are writing the GMAT as they used to. So despite a reduction here, you're seeing a trend towards an increasing GMAT score. The bottom line is only the best of the best have a shot at getting into one of these top B schools. And you'll also notice a few notable absentees. You do not have Harvard and Stanford here. The reason they're not here is purely because even in 2014, the score they required was 730 plus. So they were already at that particular score. So even if you go beyond the top 25, what you see is that the trend continues. So there is a trend towards an increasing GMAT score. So keep that in mind. If you want to get into one of those top B schools, your GMAT score is beginning to matter more than it has ever before. What we presented now was statistical data. Let's also talk about anecdotal data. So we have examples of our own students. So Nishant got a 690. He was rejected by Tuck. The beauty of a university like Tuck is that they give you a lot of proper feedback. So they actually told him, we love your candidacy, but your GMAT score 690 is not gonna cut it, boss. He worked, he improved his score to a 740, and he got full fellowship from Ohio Fisher and Columbia. Pravi, very similar story. Applied to several schools with 680, got rejected, got a 740, updated a score. Within hours of updating a score, received calls from multiple schools. So she's at UCLA. Then let's talk about KK. KK with a score of 680 got rejected by 15 B schools. When he improved to 720, he got full fellowships. Currently, he's studying at Georgia Tech. So the bottom line is, whether you're looking at statistical data or anecdotal data, it seems to us that your GMAT score seems to be mattering more than it has ever been. So keep that in mind. That is one reason why you should definitely aim for that 730 plus. Do not forget that. The second reason is about scholarships. Now, this is a very, very important point for most of us. We don't want to take in too much of a student loan. We try to avoid to take student loans as much as possible. So if you're one of those people who wants those scholarships, getting a scholarship is very difficult if you don't have a good GMAT score, and we'll prove that to you. So based on the data that we have, and e-GMAT itself accounts for around 45 million worth of scholarship year on year, every single year. So we have some good data from our students. So the total amount of merit-based scholarships that are given by USB schools is around 350 million USD. 180 million, that's 55% of this goes to students who have scored 740 or higher. So that's a very big number. And if you increase that range to 710 or higher, that's 80% of all the scholarships. So there seems to be some kind of a correlation between your GMAT score and the kind of scholarships that you can get. That's the observation. So based on our interactions, we figured out that there are two factors that really matter. One is your GMAT score. The second is how you perform in the interview. So the score really matters as far as the scholarship amount that you can get. Anecdotal data for the same: Mansi, 770, got 90K as scholarship amount from Harvard. Victor got scholarship amounts from Ross and Keenan Fagler. And then we have Kong Bui. Kong is a very interesting case. He got this scholarship amount from Ohio Fisher. They not only paid off his tuition, they also gave him extra money. They also gave him another $1,800 on a monthly basis. That's like pocket money. They wanted him there that badly. So we come back to Nishant, Pravi, and Krishnakant. You see the same trend. With a good GMAT score, you're able to get a scholarship, a good scholarship, full rights. All this and more, you will get the session PDF. Make sure you click on these links and check out these stories. Learn from, hear it from the horse's mouth. Don't listen to us. So you'll be able to understand that there seems to be some correlation between the score and your scholarship amount. Ayush is a very interesting case. He scored a 710. He applied to both Ross and Columbia. He was placed on the wait list. And he reached out to both these institutes because he felt that he had done very well. And then when he asked, the feedback he received was, again, we love your candidacy, but Indian male engineer 710 is not sufficient at all. He improved, he worked his way and improved his score, brought it to a 750, updated the scores, and he got admits from Ross and Columbia. Yet again, this is a very interesting debrief. You really want to pay attention to this if you want to understand more about how scholarships work. All right. So right now, this is a little outdated. In our YouTube channel, we have 155 plus such success stories and debriefs. Do check it out. There's a lot of value to be obtained there. Now, this is a quote from John Filler, who is the former admissions director at Ross. So essentially what's happening is your B school is practically buying that high GMAT score. People are looking at that GMAT score as a proxy for how good that candidate is. And therefore, that score really matters. The third and final reason, and this is, by the way, guys, this is a somewhat underrated reason. People don't think about this as much, but it actually matters if you think in a very long-term scale. It's actually the earning potential. It can be as close as, it's kind of close to 500,000 by our estimates. Let's explain that. To understand this, we took two institutes. One is Babson, one is MIT. Both of these institutes are 20 miles apart from each other. Both of them are in the Boston, New England area. So what that means is ideally they have access to the same kind of opportunities, typically being in the same location. But you look at the kind of salaries that these B schools get, the candidates from these B schools get. There is a difference of around 40K in the median base salary, the salary that you get. There is also this average bonus component that works in. On a 10-year scale, even if you take out that sign-in bonus component, roughly 500,000 is the difference in earning potential between two universities that are practically just 20 miles away. Think about that. There is a huge difference in terms of your future prospects based on how you perform on the GMAT. So there you have it. 3 reasons why you should be aiming to get that 730 plus. Let this be your motivation as you go towards the next parts of the session. So for those of you who want to get that 730 plus, we can help you out with that. This is something we help out for free as far as this is concerned. So we do help students come up with a study plan. So For those of you, let me just bring in this link. For those of you who are interested, there you go. So for those of you who are interested in creating a study plan, and when I say study plan, it's not some random study plan that, applies to every kind of student. No, this is a study plan that will be tailored to your ability. So our strategy counselor sits with you. You kind of take a Sigma mock test and you understand what your starting ability is in each section. Some of you may be fantastic with CR, some of you may be a little weak with CR. So the milestones that you have will vary based on your ability. The time required for you to study each and every section depends on your ability. So and it also takes into account other factors such as how much time do you have available? When are you planning to take the test? How much time do you have available on a weekday? How much time do you have available on a typical weekend, on a Sunday? It takes into account all of this. So counselors kind of sit with you and help you devise this plan that is customized to your necessities. So if you're interested in this, once you click on that link, it will take you to a page like this. You can choose your specific problem area based on where you are stuck and where you need help. It will take you to a particular case study of somebody who's been there and who's been through that exact same journey. Somebody who has been there in those shoes and was able to convert and do a good job as far as the test is concerned. So once you go through this, you fix the slot with our GMAT counselors. So this is free, but this is slot driven. So this is entirely first come first served. So unlike this session, so it can be tough to get slots. You guys can check out if slots are available. So once that is done, you guys can create a plan. We'll even tell you what kind of metrics you need to really track your performance. If you're an e-GMAT student, I'm sure some of e-GMAT students are also here. If you're an e-GMAT student, you probably already have your study plan. If you do not, do get in touch with us. We'll help you out with that. Make sure you're attending these sessions, the readiness sessions, the onboarding sessions that we're doing. Make sure that you're doing that as well. With that, let's get into CR. Let's get into reading comprehension and how to get a very good score in reading comprehension. So let me just do a quick check. Just give me 1 sec. Perfect. So the one thing you should have understood from everything that we discussed is what should you do to get that 730 plus. The one thing you should have understood is that, hey, I need this score. This is the score that I'm aspiring for. The logical question that you ask next is, what do you do to get that percentile? As far as RC is concerned, you need to get a 90th percentile as far as ability is concerned. You have to be better than 90% of the students taking the test. If you're that good in RC, and provided you're pretty much at the same level as far as the other sections are concerned, then you get a performance like this on the GMAT. So keep that in mind. 730 plus requires a 90th percentile RC ability. So before we jump into today's session and the strategies that we are going to discuss as far as approach is concerned, I want to know more about how you guys approach RC. So let me ask with the first question, which I ask in all my sessions. Every time we do an RC session, there's a very important question that we ask is, how many of you enjoy RC? And be brutally frank, it's perfectly fine not to like RC at this point. All right, so around 80% of the batch does not like RC, which is fine, which is expected at this stage, especially because CR is so easy in comparison. It's just one small argument. SC is just one small sentence. RC, on the other hand, you have this huge passage that you have to read through. It can seem boring, it can seem complex. So the next question is for all of you who clicked no. For those of you who do not enjoy RC, why is it that you do not enjoy RC? If you could put that on the short answer pod, that is this particular poll on your right. Why is it that you do not enjoy RC? What is it that irks you about reading comprehension? All right, so we already have a lot of interesting answers. Technical passages are confusing. Interest in the subject area, yes, we'll get into that. Not in the habit of reading. Time consuming, complex words, tricky, boring. Getting the gist is difficult. I totally understand that as well. So one one secondary objective for me through this session is to address some of these concerns. So some of you talk about, hey, it takes way too much time. We are going to have a discussion on the time aspect at the end of the session. Um, some of you talk about, hey, I don't enjoy this particular topic. We're going to discuss that as well. Some of you talk about complex words. We're going to prove to you that you don't have to be an English pundit. You don't need to know, you don't need to have an extensive vocabulary. We're going to prove that to you. So definitely, I'm looking forward to addressing some of these concerns by the end of the session. All right, that's good. The second piece I want to understand is about your current method. So typically there are three ways that somebody would do RC, approach to RC. You could be a person who's skimming through the passage and then going to the questions. You could be a person who looks at the question and then goes to the passage. And you could be a person who reads the passage and then jumps to the question. Which of these is your method of going through RC? In fact, yes. Let's just hear it on the short answer board. That's fine. So quite a few ones, quite a few threes as well. All right. 2 and 3, 1 and 3. So whichever the method that you use, the next question I have for you is, how has it worked out for you? Have you ever faced this situation, irrespective of whichever method you used? Have you ever faced this situation where you thought you understood the passage, but when you went to the questions, you got stumped? How many of you have faced this situation? Irrespective of which approach you followed. So 99%, so 97%, overwhelming situation here. Most of you have felt this pain that, hey, I thought I understood the passage, but not really. There's something that's still not right. The reason I ask this is, as far as e-GMAT is concerned, method 1 and method 2 do not work on the GMAT. If you're proponents of methods 1 and 2, one of the objectives of this session is to give you that belief that method 3 is the best method of all. And for those of you who are trying to do method 3, hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll be a little more confident about how to go about. Maybe there's, in terms of approach, you might still not be doing some of the things you need to do. So by the end of the session, if you're already using method 3, that is reading the passage, you will get a little better at reading the passage. That's something that you should look forward to. And for those of you who are currently skimmers or questions first people, hopefully this session will convince you that reading the passage first is a better approach. That's my belief, that's our belief. All right. The last question I have for you, and this is the final point of what I call self-diagnosis. This is you trying to figure out where you stand. So in your own estimate, as per your understanding, what is your level of understanding of a passage once you've read it? How good is your passage comprehension? This is your own self-assessment. The reason we ask you to do this is, one, it gives me or Shraddha an idea about where the class stands, so we can discuss in an appropriate fashion. The second reason is, it is also an opportunity for you to reflect on, all right, your own self-assessment. How is it? Where do you stand? What do you need to do? So around 3% are in that Zen master level, that is 98 to 100 percentile, percentage of understanding. And a lot of you are in that 50 to 75 range. That's over 50% of you are right there. So let me tell you what it takes as far as GMAT RC is concerned. If you want to get 90th percentile ability, your level of comprehension, your level of understanding once you read the passage, should be 90% at the very least. It should be above this 90%. So hopefully by the end of the session, some of you who are in that 75 to 90 will be a little closer. Some of you who are in that 50 to 75 will hopefully be a little better off. That's one thing that we want to see today. So good. Before we jump into the core concept, let's understand what this session is all about. So my primary goal today is to help you do better in reading comprehension. Very simple. How are we going to go about that? We're going to introduce to you certain reading strategies, 3 of them very specifically, and we're going to teach you how to use these strategies to extract the meaning from the passage at a level that you may not have done otherwise. If you're already doing that, that's great. But otherwise, by using these reading strategies, I can prove to you that you'll be able to get a lot more juice from the passage. And then that's not all. Obviously, that's not enough. You also need to know how to use that information to answer questions. So we're going to also look at that. We're going to specifically look at main point and inference at the beginning. We're going to show you how using these strategies to extract the meaning is going to help you solve these questions much easier. And then the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We're not going to leave it there. We are also going to solve a 700 level GMAT RC passage. Everything that you have learned in steps 1 and 2, you're going to try to apply this in step 3, and you'll see that it works beautifully. All right. So let me do a quick check. How many of you are ready to start? On the short answer pod, let's hear a few yeses. Let's always start with yeses and because we love to see those yeses when people understand it. Perfectly, perfect. So a couple of caveats before we begin as far as the session is concerned. This is not the session, this is not the kind of session where you do 7 or 8 passages and 15 or 16 questions. Not at all. We are going to do 2 short passages and 1 big passage. That's about it. The idea is quality over quantity. We are not gonna, this is not a workshop session. This is a session where we're gonna take small passages. We're gonna build ability by solving those passages. All right. So let's talk about how we are going to improve our RC. The first thing and the most important thing is any kind of process that we teach you will not work if the attitude is not fixed. When I say attitude fix, what do I mean? A lot of you do not enjoy RC. A lot of you find that, hey, it's entirely topic dependent. The thing is, you have to start enjoying RC. The key to doing well in reading comprehension is to begin immersing yourself in the passage. To do that, you need to have the right mindset. You cannot go and solve an RC passage without being even remotely interested in the topic. Imagine going into a topic and telling me that, hey, this is humanities. I really do not enjoy humanities. You're reading the passage with a negative mindset. It's very difficult to comprehend if you're going in with that mindset. On the other hand, if you go in with the mindset that, hey, it does not matter what the topic is. It truly does not matter what the topic is. Whatever the topic, in those 3 minutes or 4 minutes that I'm going to read this passage, let's try to understand what's happening. Let's try to understand what this author is trying to tell me. You can learn something about feminism. You can learn something about quantum physics. This attitude part is much more important. And I mean that. You might say it's silly. Why are you pointing this out? Why are you wasting time spending on this? Because even after the session, a lot of you, at least some of you, will not get it. And the reason you won't get it is primarily because you have not made this adjustment in your mind. It's important. You have to get immersed in the passage. For that, how do you go about it? The first thing is keep the end goal in mind. You want the 730 plus. You want the 90th percentile. Why will you do well in RC if you do not enjoy RC? Very rare. It's very rare that you will do well in something which you do not enjoy, right? So you need to start building that enjoyment for it. Keep that end goal in mind. Remember that this is what I want to do. This is something that you will do. All right. If that is true, then let's get to reading strategies. What are we going to do today? All right. The first aspect that we are going to discuss today is what we call sentence structure. If you look at your typical GMAT RC passage, sentences become paragraphs, paragraphs become passages. the first layer of meaning that you need to unlock is at the sentence level. If you do not understand what's happening at a sentence level, understanding what's happening at the paragraph or beyond paragraph levels is not going to be easy at all. All right. So when you talk about sentence structure, we talk about how do you break down those long complex sentences. When you look at GMAT RC, you have huge sentences, you have long convoluted and dense sentences. The idea is to break it down chunk by chunk, analyze it, and then assimilate it. You use what we call in e-GMAT as the SC hat. You really analyze it bit by bit and understand what's happening. So we're gonna spend some time on this as well. The second important strategy that we are going to discuss today is called keywords. Now, what are keywords? Keywords are very important words or phrases that are used by the author in order to convey a specific meaning. You will see such words in all your GMAT RC passages. The minute what you would notice is in every passage, once you've done 10-15 passages, you'll see the same words or phrases come all over. I mean, over and over and again, you'll see the same words and phrases. These particular words or phrases are called keywords. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say in your passage, in the passage that you're solving, you see a line which says work from home has improved employee productivity. So that's some positive of work from home. And then you see the word however. Apologies for the bad spelling, but yeah, you see the word however. The question you have to ask at this point is what will follow this however. Work from home is great for employee productivity, and then you see this word however. From today, what I want you to do is don't just read mechanically. Pause when you see this however, ask the question why is it there? And the answer, some of you are putting it down. The answer is it indicates some kind of a contrast. So if the author told you that work from home has this benefit of increasing employee productivity, after however, what do you expect to see? Something negative about work from home. It could be like, however, work from home also leads to a significant amount of employee stress. The point is, because you're paying attention to this keyword, however, you already know that what's going to follow is a negative of work from home. How does that help? It helps because you're anticipating what's coming, you're kind of primed to receive that information. Your brain absorbs that information faster. Similarly, on the flip side, if the next line was something completely random or unrelated, it's very hard for you to figure out how this connects to the passage. On the other hand, if it is something that you anticipate, your brain is able to absorb that information faster. Therefore, your comprehension improves wonderfully. Is this clear? The logic of why keywords work? Perfect. The last strategy that we're going to discuss today, it's a very underrated strategy, and a lot of you who are struggling with RC, the reason you're struggling with RC is this particular one. You do not summarize as you read. Again, when do you summarize? Whenever you reach a point of information overload. You always summarize at the end of paragraphs and after you read the whole passage, that's fine. But even within a paragraph, at any point where you reach a point of information overload, when it's becoming very difficult to hold on to that information, don't just mechanically move forward. Before you go to that next step, summarize what you understood here in your own words. That understanding helps you to connect it, that helps you understand what's following very easily. Otherwise, when you're reading the next portion, which is building on this first portion, you're completely lost. And the reason a lot of you get lost in those long complex passages, especially humanities passages, is you do not do this summarization. If you do not summarize, when you're reading the next portion, you're lost. That's very, very simple. So I'm sure as we go through this session, a lot of you will have a question about, hey, how can you do all this within 3 minutes or 4 minutes? My only advice to you is hold on to all your time related questions till the end of the session. Trust the process. Just read slowly. All right. So with this, I'm going to introduce the first passage for the day. The question that will be attached to it is a main point question. Let me bring the poll for this. So what I want you to do is, once you're done reading the passage, click on yes in the poll that says done reading. All right. So here is the passage, guys. Don't worry about 1 minute, I'm not timing you, as long as it takes. Here's the passage. All right, many of you are done. I think somebody raised a question. I've already seen this on YouTube. Yes, it would be the same passage. It's the same question. I think you probably saw a recording of the same session. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, just so that you guys have the passage for reference, I'm gonna ensure that the passage is right here. You should find the passage at the bottom of the screen. So many of you are done, but there are 280 participants and around 200, 180 odd responses. The rest of you, make sure you're participating. You're here, you might as well participate. That's how you learn. All right, so let me hide this. What we are going to do now, let me introduce the poll. All right. So all of you who are going to solve this question, can you please click on still solving? That's the fifth option right there. That way, I'm not going to time you guys. The group is going to time itself. You guys are going to time yourself. So if you guys click on still solving, that would be great. And as this number reaches around 180, then we should show the question. All right, so a good number of you have clicked on still solving. I'm gonna go through with the question at this point. Here you go. All the best. Alright guys, let's take another 10-15 seconds. A lot of you are done now. Three, two, one, and anybody for the last second? Alright, I'm gonna pause this and let's broadcast the results. So 46% of you chose option D. It was the most popular option choice, but still less than 50% of you chose that. Option D is the correct answer, by the way. 46% of you on the right track, but as a group, there are around 280 to 70 odd people here, and around 200 of you have taken this poll, 220 of you have taken this poll. What I can see is less than 50% of this batch has got this question correct. So pay a lot of attention. For those of you who got it right, that's good, fantastic. But for others, pay a little bit of attention to what we're going to discuss now. All right. So let's get some feedback. How did you find this passage? So let me broadcast the results. How did you find this passage? Was it easy? Was it difficult to comprehend? Not talking about the question. I'm talking about the passage itself. Easy, difficult at first, tough to understand, direct. That's nice, interesting. So it seems like a mixed bag. Some of you felt it was okay, some of you felt it was difficult. Quite hard with language comprehension. Somebody even made a comment that, hey, the language in this is very, very crazy. So I understand all of that. Now pay attention as we solve this. All right. Bordering on the extreme. One definition of ethnocentrism considers it so I'm going to pause right here because there's already a lot of things here which I want to understand. We only hit 8 words pretty much, but there's already a lot of information here. So the first question I have for you is what is meant by bordering on the extreme? What does it convey? On the short answer pod, guys. We're going to learn together. Yes, it is an opinion of someone. It is the author's opinion. On the extreme side, that's interesting. Extreme view. That's what I'm looking for. And it is describing the definition. So firstly, bordering on the extreme is written by the author. It is describing this particular definition. That one definition, it's describing that. And as so many of you correctly pointed out, what it's telling you is, hey, whatever that definition is, it's a little extreme, or in other words, it's a little radical, it's a little exaggerated. How many of you see that right at the outset? Bordering on the extreme, one definition. So the author is telling us that whatever this definition is, it's a little exaggerated. That's the first piece of inference that I can make just based on that first 4 lines. Everybody with me so far? Perfect. Now let's go to the next portion. One definition of ethnocentrism. Let's call this EC for short. All right. Why I keep saying ethnocentrism? So one definition of EC. Now tell me, why did the author use the word one definition? What is indicated by one definition? What can you infer from that? There can be multiple definitions. Absolutely, that's true. What else? That's definitely true, by the way. But there's something else which I'm looking for. It is a view. Perfect. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Yes. So one definition gives you 2 aspects. The first aspect is that, hey, this means that there are probably multiple definitions. That is something you could have inferred. The second piece of information is one definition, not necessarily my definition if I am the author. I'm not telling you that this is the definition. I'm not even telling you that this is the accepted definition, this is the definition I agree with. I'm not telling you that. It is one definition. What that means is, as the author, it's not necessary that I agree with this definition. How many of you see that now? So bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC means that, hey, as per the author, there is this one particular definition of EC, and as per the author, this particular definition is exaggerated. Just from the first 8 words, there is so much we could pull out, right? If this is clear, let's move on. So bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC considers it a schismatic in-group out-group differentiation. Now, I have no idea what the word schismatic means, but it's okay. Let's move on. If it is important, we'll figure it out. In-group out-group differentiation. Can I say some kind of a difference between in-group and out-group, whatever those groups are? That much you can understand, right? So as per this definition of EC, EC is some kind of a difference between an in-group and out-group. That much we can understand. In which is a keyword. It means that it's going to describe what is going to follow is a description. Description of what? This in-group out-group differentiation. I pay attention to that keyword, I don't rush through. In which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, etc., devotion to the in-group. Now, let's pause here. Because, why am I pausing here? I told you one of the key reading strategies. Whenever you reach a point of information overload, summarize. This is a lot of jargon. Cohesion, peace, solidarity, loyalty, devotion to the in-group. What should I do? Summarize. So, if you guys were to summarize this, what would you do? How would you categorize this? Just that internal cohesion all the way till devotion to the in-group. Summarize it in your own words and tell me what is it. Perfect. You guys are getting this. So you guys are coming up with the answers. I'm just telling you where to focus. Positives, not features. This is actually, it's not features of in-group. Features would be incorrect. But you're essentially talking about the positive aspects, or some kind of a positive feeling, friendliness, some kind of a positive feeling towards the in-group. Correct? So some kind of a positive feeling towards the in-group are correlated with, that's another keyword. What is the meaning of correlation? When you say A is correlated with B, what does it mean? The audio seems to be working fine. I'm not sure what the issue is. I have full signal at the moment. Yeah. Connected, absolutely. A is correlated to B simply means that there is some connection between A and B. So, in-group, some kind of differentiation between in-group and out-group, in which positive feeling, say love or like or whatever, towards the in-group is linked with a state of hostility towards the out-group, which is fairly easy to understand. Some kind of hate, hostility, right? So love for your in-group is correlated with a hate for the out-group, which are often perceived as subhuman. So you know that when you're talking about groups, you're talking about people groups. That's why subhuman and or the incorporation of evil. So some kind of differentiation as per which love for your own people, the word, exact word doesn't matter. Some kind of positive feeling, love, like, whatever, for your own people, that's the in-group, is linked or correlated with some kind of a negative feeling or hatred towards the outside people. Everybody with me so far? That's it. We have understood everything there is in this passage. It's a very short passage. Right? This is one sentence. But in this one sentence, there are at least 3 pieces of information that you should have got. The first piece of information is that this is talking about one particular definition of EC, not necessarily the author's definition. How would you have got that? If you had paid attention to one definition and asked the question, what does this mean? You would know that it's not necessarily the author's definition. Then, if you had focused on bordering on the extreme and asked the question, what does this mean? You'd be able to infer that as per the author, this particular definition is exaggerated. And then if you summarized what you read here, this entire complicated definition, you figure out that it's talking about some kind of a difference between in-group and out-group, where love for your own people or in-group is correlated with hate for your out-group. Do you guys see what we have done here? In simple words, we have understood everything there is in the passage, but focus on all those points that we did. We looked at keywords, we summarized, we kind of applied reading strategies to get this. Now the question I have for you, and this is where things are going to get interesting. How many of you were not able to get all these points? And let's put that to a poll. Select the items that you were not able to understand. There are three lines here, right? There are three aspects here. Which of these were you not able to understand? And this is where the learning comes. This is what I want you to take away. So those of you who got everything, very, very good. That's what you're supposed to do. Those of you who got this, 30% who have got everything, you're demonstrating a 90th percentile ability if you got this. Because this passage is not easy. I mean, it's short, it's one line, but it's not easy. So 30% of you did not get that first bit. That is one definition of EC. Why? You did not focus on that keyword one definition and ask what does that mean. 35% of you were not able to get point number 2. That indicates the definition is a bit exaggerated. That means you did not understand the meaning of bordering on the extreme. You just rushed through it. If you had paid attention to that, you would have understood point number 2. Point number 3, if you have not summarized, that's where you fell for point number 3. You read this complicated piece of text, but you did not really understand it in your own words. So do you see the scope for improvement for all of us? Most of us, at least. Imagine going and looking at that question, having understood all these 3 points. That's what we are going to do now. Let's look at the question. Now that you have understood this, you guys will be able to tell me why something is wrong versus why something is right. The question was a main purpose question. What was the purpose of the author behind writing this paragraph? Is it A, to criticize a concept that encourages hostility towards people not belonging? Do we know that EC encourages hostility? No, right? There is nowhere does it say. It just says that love for in-group is correlated with hate for out-group. It doesn't say that EC is only causing that hate. That is not mentioned anywhere. And as couple of you are pointing out, there is also no criticism here. 2 reasons. So 7%, 16 of you chose option A. Now you know why it's not correct. Isn't making summary, causality versus correlation, absolutely. Isn't making summary during exam time consuming? Not at all. Anyway, we are going to discuss time later. Not at all. I'll tell you how you save time on this. But good. I think that everybody's clear with option A. Let's go to option B. 21% of you have chosen this. Think about it. The word evaluate as far as GMAT lingo is concerned means to consider the positive and the negative, to consider the pros and cons. Is the author in this passage discussing the pros and cons of ethnocentrism? You should reject this right there. Absolutely. The minute I see this evaluate, I ask the question, has the author talked about the pro of the concept of ethnocentrism? No. Has he talked about the con of the concept of ethnocentrism? No. All he did was present to you one definition, not necessary that it's the actual definition also. This is one definition which, as per the author, is a slightly exaggerated definition. That's a good question. As the author says, the definition is exaggerated. He is criticizing the definition. He is not criticizing the concept. That's a very good question. I'm happy somebody asked that. If you notice, the criticism is not of ethnocentrism itself. It's at the best a criticism of that particular definition when the author says it's exaggerated. Yes. And the other aspect is it was just giving definition. It does not really talk about features, but I think you guys got that as well. Now let's go to option C. Again, 20% of you chose this. You chose this because you did not notice that one definition need not be author's definition. Author has not defined ethnocentrism. The author has simply presented one definition of ethnocentrism. Do you guys see that? That's the first reason you should reject option C. 20% of you who chose option C. Clarity coming through? Has the author defined ethnocentrism, or has the author presented one particular definition of ethnocentrism? One definition means view of somebody. The author has not defined it. He's just presented somebody's definition. The next reason you should reject this option is hierarchy. Where is hierarchy in this? It does not say that the in-group is at a higher level than the out-group. There is no mention of hierarchy, right? So again, nothing was discussed about social. Nothing was discussed about hierarchy more precisely. And therefore, this is another reason why you should reject option C. Which brings us to the correct answer, chosen by 46% of you. To introduce the concept of EC by presenting a view on it. Notice how carefully it's crafted. It does not say by presenting his or her view on it. It just says by presenting a view on it. That means it's not necessarily, if I am the author, it's not necessarily my view. But through this passage, what did the author achieve? He introduced us, that is the reader, to the concept of EC. But he didn't do this by presenting the definition, the accepted definition necessarily. He presented it by presenting one particular exaggerated definition. The word subhuman was confusing though. I get that. But if you follow the analysis, that word subhuman doesn't really matter. It's not about hierarchy. It just means someone below human. That does not mean necessarily imply it's a hierarchy. You read it as Superman. Well, that's good. So the people who did not choose option D, do you see why option D is the correct answer? Very good points. If there's any questions, you'll also put it in the Q&A. You'll be happy to answer that as well. Perfect. I love to see those yeses. If for anybody something is not clear, put it on the Q&A. We'll help you out. Right now, if you liked what you just did, are we ready to go to the next question? The next passage? Good. Now, the key point is you need to apply what you learned. You saw what we did. We broke down the sentences, sentence structure. Then what did we do? We summarized. And then what did we do? We focused on keywords. You do all this, things are going to go much easier as far as RC is concerned. RC is not that complicated. So before I get into that, let's take some observations and insights from what you just did. By the way, you notice that we got into this topic hook, line and sinker. We just immersed ourselves into this passage. We did not think, I mean, at least when we were analyzing it, we did not think that, hey, I don't know what ethnocentrism is. I won't enjoy this. We didn't do that. We put our 100% into the passage. That's the first thing you should have observed. The second thing you would have observed is we read for comprehension. We did not read for time. We broke down those big sentences. We focused on keywords. We summarized. And what do you not need to do to ace GMAT RC? You do not need to be brilliant with the English language. Remember, I still don't know what schismatic means. And some of you will still not know what schismatic means. Does it matter? Did it matter? You were able to answer a main point question perfectly fine without knowing this. In all your GMAT RC passages, you will always typically come across at least one word that you do not know. It does not matter. Why? Because GMAT is not a test of vocabulary. It's a test of logical ability. It's meant to test you on logical ability, not on vocabulary. Right? And remember, how many of you really understand what this ethnocentrism is? How many of you come from that background about ethnocentrism, where you have studied about it? No idea, right? For most of us, this is a completely alien topic. And still it did not matter. And that's what I want you to take away from this passage. GMAT RC, you do not have to be worried about topics. You can be truly topic agnostic. Of course, if you're already familiar with the topic, obviously you have a little bit of an edge. But it does not matter, because any topic you can do this. Any topic, these approaches will work. Any topic you can solve easily. So there's a question here. Do you write down the summary after every such para? In the learning phase, we do suggest that you write down. As you get better, the need to put pen to paper comes down drastically. If you're in the learning phase where you're just beginning to learn this, it's a good practice to write down. That's all I'll say. It's not necessary, but yeah. So keep that in mind. You do not need to know all the fancy words that come on your GMAT passages. Not at all necessary. You do not need to know about every topic under the sun. That's also not necessary. Oh, we have a few Greeks here. Welcome. All right. So now let's do the second question. Same approach. Remember, you need to show improvement. Those of you who struggled in the last passage, this passage you should ideally try to apply what we are doing. So again, once you're done reading the passage, click on done reading. Here's the passage for you. All right, quite a few of you are done. So same procedure. I'm gonna introduce the passage for you. I mean at the bottom so that you have a reference. There you go. And let's kind of increase this. All right, so now it's time to the question. By the way, this question is not an inference, it's not a main point question, it's an inference question. So pay attention to that as well. Let me take this out. Click on still solving, guys, so that as a group you guys can time yourself. Perfect. So quite a few of you are done. So here's the question. All the best. Let's start bringing those answers in, folks. Let's take another 10 seconds. Most of you are done. Three, two, one. And anybody wants to take a last minute shot, do it right now before I close the poll. And close. All right. So quick thoughts. How was this passage? And compared to the last passage, did you feel any difference? Your thoughts? Easy, 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 better. Seemed okay in the beginning. So somewhere in the end you got stuck. All right. All options were present in the passage. All options were present in the passage. That means there's something we need to check. All right. Fairly straightforward. I like that. So some of you definitely uh, better after explanation. Oh, thanks. That's lovely. So definitely some of you were able to see an improvement. Good. So let me broadcast the results here. And it's going to be very interesting because 32% of people have chosen option B and 32% of people have chosen option E. And that's essentially a split jury. One of those is the correct option. So we're going to discuss this now. As always, pay close attention. Before we get into the actual passage, let's talk about this particular situation. Assume I am the author. I'm telling you that the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on the moods of people. This is the sentence that I give you. The question that I have for you is, which of these is a valid inference? Let me just bring the poll, just one sec. Let's just... So two statements for you. Which of these is the valid inference? Let's kind of, yeah, this should be fine. Because this is an inference question, let's speak about inferences. Very interesting answers. Let's take another 5 seconds before we start discussing this. And there's a reason we are taking this detour, by the way. Some of you would have figured it out. 3, 2, 1, and end poll. All right. So 70% of you say that only statement A can be inferred. Statement 1 can be inferred. 30% of you either believe that only statement 2 or both the statements can be inferred. The correct answer is the 70%. Only statement 1 can be inferred. And this is again a very important concept. There is this keyword here that you should pay attention to. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on the moods of people. The question you have to ask is, who is doing this consideration? Is it necessarily the author? Is something you need to think about. If the author wanted to communicate to you that the color blue is actually soothing, he would have just written the color blue is soothing. He doesn't have to write considered to have a soothing effect. The minute he puts considered to, you have that doubt. Is it necessarily the author or is it a general? There's at least some people who have this consideration. This is exactly very, very similar to one definition. When you see one definition, you're not 100% sure it's something the author agrees with. With this particular statement, you have the exact same problem. When you say the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect, you cannot be 100% sure that the author also considers blue to have a soothing effect. How many of you are clear with this now that we've discussed this? Absolutely, the answer is E. That's why
Hello all. I guess
Hey,
yes.
I'm back,
Harsha
Shraddha.
is back.
I'm back. So yeah, I just got disconnected, guys. Just give me one sec. Let me reset up. And thanks, Shraddha, for taking over. But yeah, I think the issue is resolved. Let me set up. Quick check. Can you guys hear me now? Just put yes if you can hear me. Yeah, the signal is back, so it should be fine. Perfect. So the question is, you have to ask is, the color blue is considered simply means that there are some people at least who consider blue to have a soothing effect. If the author wanted to tell you that the color blue is soothing, this definitely, there's no ambiguity. You know that the author agrees with this, that the color blue is soothing, because the author is telling you this. If this is clear to you, you have something very similar in this passage. If you have paid attention to this, you would not have chosen option B. If you had understood, if you had stopped here, asked why that is there, what it means, and truly understood what it means, all of you, 32% of you who chose option B would not have chosen option B. That's kind of what you're going to see. Let's analyze this passage. Ethnocentrism, EC, let's call it EC, and its canonical variance. Again, we are getting to the options, don't worry. Right now, let's focus on the passage. Don't worry about that. We'll come to the options, don't worry. EC and its canonical variance. I do not everybody knows what the meaning of canonical is. I think it means some things like identical, but yet again, like schismatic, if you don't know, it's okay, let's move on. You can probably infer the meaning from context. So EC and its variance are deemed to be or considered to be intimately connected with xenophobia. Let's call xenophobia as XP. So EC and XP. So the key point is, it's not necessarily the author's opinion that EC and XP are intimately connected. It is, there are some people who have this opinion. That's the first piece of information that you should get. Is this clear? Right at the beginning. We have only reached till xenophobia. Perfect. So there are, as per the author, EC and XP are considered to be. So at least there are some people who believe that EC and XP are intimately connected. And then you have a comma. And then you have this. A complex attitude system comes intimate structure involving aversion, dislike, and antagonism vis-a-vis the strange or the alien, and everything that the stranger or alien represents. What did I tell you we should do when you read such things, which are complex and dense, before you move on to the next piece? Pause, yes. Actually, deemed and considered practically mean the same. Summarize, absolutely. Some of you are mentioning it. So, if you guys had to summarize, what would you summarize this as? Pause, summarize, assimilate, perfect. We are not ignoring those sub-definitions. We are trying to summarize that. So, let's try. If you guys had to summarize that entire whatever is given here after xenophobia, how would you do that? Yes, well, that's one way of going about it. Definition of XP that's being provided. I also like that answer, dislike against the strange, because there are two layers to it. One is, it's the definition of XP. The second level is, what is the definition of XP telling you? And some of you have spot on perfect answers. Dislike for that category. In this case, that category you're referring to is the foreigner or alien or the stranger. So you guys are getting this. Quite a few of you got this. So at some level, if you had to summarize this, some kind of a dislike for the foreigner or the alien or the strange. I'm merely writing down what you guys defined it as. Perfect. Now the question I have for you, and it's a very important question. You're, and some of you correctly categorize as, hey, the definition of XP is being presented. The question I have for you is this a definition that the author agrees with? Or just like in the last passage, can you not be sure about whether the author agrees with it or not? So some yeses, some of you are in that no category. So this is a point of concern. The answer is the author has provided that as the definition of xenophobia. Look at the way he's written the sentence. Focus on the sentence structure. EC and its variants are considered or deemed to be intimately connected with XP, comma, and then what follows is the description of XP as per the author. The author does not say that this is one definition of XP or this is the definition of XP that some people believe to be true. No, he just put a comma and he gave you the definition. He's given it to you as the definition of XP. Can you guys see that now? How that comma makes all the difference? The deemed to be part applies only till this portion. As per the author, there are these people who consider EC to be connected with XP. That deemed to be does not apply to the definition that's provided here. The author agrees with it. He is presenting the definition to you as a fact for us, the reader, to understand. I'll give you an example of this. Let's not leave this to chance. Let me bring in an example to make this clear. Do you guys see this example of the first one about verbo? Don't worry, we'll make this clear. For those of you who are still a little confused about this. Verbo is considered a unicorn, a company with $1 billion valuation. So, is the author telling you that Verbo is a company with $1 billion valuation? Or what is exactly happening here? The author is trying to tell you that a unicorn is a company which has $1 billion valuation, right? Is the definition of unicorn. Absolutely. Do you guys see that now? Can you guys relate this to what is there in this particular passage? Exactly the same way, right? Look at the other example also. Google, an internet company, is considered a good buy. So, as per the author, we don't know whether the author genuinely believes whether Google is considered a good buy, whether Google is actually a good buy. But whether Google is an internet company or not, is that for debate? No, right? That's very clear. So for those of you who are not understanding this, is this clear? The author will agree with the definition if he is only stating it because he is providing that definition. He is giving it to us, he or she is giving it to us as a fact for us to process as the reader. He is giving it to us as a fact. He's telling you that a unicorn is a company with $1 billion valuation. It's considered a fact. And the author is a logical person. He's never going to disagree with a fact which he or she himself states. I hope this is coming through. This is a very important point. So some of you fell for this because you did not understand these points. Good. If this is clear, now you can see that the author has fundamentally given us the definition of xenophobia as a fact. This is not one definition of xenophobia. This is the definition as per the author. So now let's move on. So EC and its variants are considered to be, some people believe they're connected, intimately connected. And what is xenophobia? At some level, summarizing it, it's some kind of dislike towards foreigners or aliens. Now let's move on. We've covered till here. Some socio-cultural anthropologists. Yet again, see how beautifully the author is letting you know it's not necessarily him or her. Some socio-cultural anthropologists even considered XP and EC opposite sides of the same coin. Very important to pause here. Who can tell me what is the purpose of this even? Why did the author put this even? It's a very, very beautiful keyword. If you pay attention to it, you kind of unlock the meaning of the passage only. One step ahead further to emphasize those who are saying that you're all on the right track. Not to provide difference. Extreme. Yes. It's not another viewpoint. So all of you said it's to emphasize, it's taking it to that next level, taking it to that next extreme. That's what is right. You have to connect this line with the previous line. The first line tells us that, hey, as per some people, EC and XP, pay attention. As per some people, EC and XP are intimately connected. But then there are these other people, anthropologists, who go on to say that they are not just intimately connected, they are connected to such a level that XP and EC are opposite sides of the same coin. Opposite sides of the same coin. When you have a coin, there is a heads and there is a tails, right? Two opposite sides. The one thing you can be sure about is opposite sides coexist. You cannot have a heads without the tails, right? In a typical coin. If you have one side of the coin, you also have the other side of the coin. Opposite sides of the same coin practically means that they coexist. These two things exist at the same time. And that's when you understand how it connects to line 2, line 1. EC and its variance. Some people believe their EC is connected to XP. Some other people, anthropologists, believe that they are not just connected, they are so much connected that they're practically coexisting. They're practically opposite sides of the same coin. They're so connected that one cannot exist without the other. Do you guys see that? Even here is not a contrast. Even here is setting that emphasis. What is being said in line 1, they're taking it to the next level in line 2. I will give you an example for that also. I see a Sholay reference here. That's nice. Very interesting. I'll give you an example to understand this as well. Where you go? There it is. So for those of you who like basketball, I'm putting a basketball reference for you. Tell me if you understand what's happening there. Shaq was the most dominant basketball player of his time. Some analysts even consider him to be the most dominant player of all time. So you see how that extra emphasis is being created, taking it to that next level. It is a fact that Shaq was the most dominant player of his time. But then there are these people who believe that he was not just the most dominant player of his time, he's the most dominant player of all time. Do you see what that even is doing there? Is this clear? Is even coming through? For those of you who are a little bit confused about this now. The second one is a different usage of even, because I have clubbed even with not. I can also use even to emphasize in the reverse direction, decreasing emphasis. GDP is increasingly a poor measure of prosperity. It is so bad that it's not even a reliable gauge of production. By clubbing it with not, I can take it in the other direction also. It's a very beautiful keyword, right? The fact is, if you understood this, you got the soul of the passage. How that line 1 is connecting to line 2. That's the thing. So now let's move on. So some people even considered XP and EC to be opposite sides of the same coin, as in taking that connection to the next level. But is a keyword. But means there's some kind of a contrast coming in. So now we are going to the prediction. I told you, right? You predict. The prediction is that what will follow, it will lessen that. It's going to suggest that it's not going to be that much of a connection also between EC and XP. But a few voices have cautioned that this need not be the case. Yet again, the author is letting us know that this is not necessarily him or her. Some few voices. There are these few people who say that this need not be the case. Did you notice that? So, quick summary of everything in this passage. As per some people, EC and its variants are considered to be intimately or closely connected to XP. XP means the author has given this as a fact. He agrees with it. It means some kind of a hatred for aliens or strangers. Some experts take it to the extreme and say that they are not just connected, they are so connected that they practically coexist. But there are some other experts also there who say that it's not like that. It need not be the case. Everybody understood this? If you have understood this, now we are all on track, on the same page. Perfect. So, from this passage, there are these 4 pieces of information you could have got. Firstly, the author has defined this term called XP, and this is a term that the author is defining, which means the author agrees with it. In fact, if you really observe, this is the only statement in the passage with the author where you know the author agrees with. Because everything else, some people believe EC and XP are intimately connected. Some other people believe that EC and XP not just connected, they practically coexist. And then some other people think otherwise. Exactly. So now the question for you, just like the last time, just to see where we stand. Which of these did you miss? Which of these did you get? And this is what by observing which point you missed, you kind of know which aspect of reading strategy you were not good in. So maybe you did not summarize that and understand the definition of XP. You did not realize that the author agrees with the definition of XP. That is a sentence structure problem. You do not notice that keyword even and believe that some experts think EC and XP coexist. So you guys can see how you guys performed. Yes, a lot of you missed the deemed to be. And if you missed the deemed to be, you probably chose option B as well. So there's a lot of learning here. We have done better than the last time. So last time understood all was 30%. Now understood all is 53%. So I think even that's an improvement. Good job for all of you. So now let's look at the answers. Oh yeah, before we get into answers, I'm sure some of you will have some questions about this. So let's discuss this. What is a correct inference as far as GMAT RC is concerned? In simple words, both in CR and RC, an inference is what is definitely true if the given information is true. There has to be no uncertainty regarding what you're inferring. That's the most important piece. Now, as far as RC is concerned, and it's actually true for CR also, but just that the author's role is more prominent in RC. A correct inference is always something the author believes in. If it is some scholar's view, if it is some third-party critic's view, it will not be the answer to the question. According to the passage, what can be inferred? Passage is written by the author. When you see according to the passage, that inference has to be something the author agrees with. Everybody on board? Everybody aligned to this? Keep that in mind, because throughout GMAT RC, this is what you're going to see. The next piece, it has to be something on which the author has talked about. Like I said, it has to be something that the author believes in himself or herself. The third portion, this is what some of you will have a little bit of doubt about. A fact from the passage, something that is stated in the passage, or as one of you has already pointed out, a premise that is given in the passage, can it be a valid inference? As far as GMAT is concerned, the answer is yes, it can be. Your inference need not be a completely new logical deduction. Even a restatement of given information is a valid inference on the GMAT. This is true both in CR as well as RC. Only that in CR we barely see that. In RC, on the other hand, you'll see it time and again. Everybody with me? I'll give you an example for that. Look at the example on the screen. Ron is the fastest runner in his class. If this is the statement that you have, let me just put this in bold. This is the statement, all right? All these three statements are valid. They're all valid. If you look at the third statement, it's just a restatement, right? Ron is the fastest runner in his class. By definition means that nobody in Ron's class runs faster than him. It's not a new logical deduction point, right? But it would still be a valid inference as far as the GMAT is concerned. You can have the same thing, a restatement of given information as a valid inference. This is true both in CR and RC. You see it a lot more in RC. So remember that. Everybody on board about what is a valid inference as far as GMAT is concerned, and especially as far as RC is concerned? Keep this in mind, because if you this is a doubt that a lot of students have. If you're not clear that a restatement of given information can be a valid inference, a lot of you will choose incorrect option choices out of pure confusion. Good. If that's clear, now let's look at the option choices. It's very, very simple. So what do we know? Option choice A. So the question is, what can be inferred from this particular passage, according to the passage, which can be inferred? XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. Or in other words, opposite sides, different sides of the same coin. But who is saying this? Is this a view of the author? No. It's a view of some experts, some socio-cultural anthropologists. They are saying that. The author is not saying that. My signal is fine. I think the audio is working, but yeah. Everybody clear on why option A cannot be the right answer? 18% of you chose this. For those of you who chose this, now is it clear why this is not the correct answer? If it's clear, perfect. Let's look at option 2. By the way, you're gonna reject all the option choices in no time, and that will tell you the power of understanding the passage at this level. You understand the passage at this level, rejecting this option, less than 5 seconds. You read this, you know it's wrong. Likewise, canonical variants of EC are closely connected with XP. The key point was here. Anybody who missed deemed to be, you would not have got this. So this is a deemed view of some people. We don't know if the author agrees with it or not. So 32% of you who chose option B, I hope this brings clarity. And imagine a lot of you would have spent time debating between option B and option E, trying to analyze which one is the correct answer. Imagine you already had this clarity before you went into option choices. You would read this and immediately say that, hey, but this is not what the author is saying. You don't know whether the author agrees with it. Therefore, within 5 seconds, you can reject this option choice. That is the power of analyzing the passage at this level. And that's where the time saving is going to come, and we're going to discuss that later as well. But remember this. Keep this in mind. If you had understood this deemed to be right here, rejecting this option choice would have taken you less than 5 seconds. The minute you read it, you know this is not the correct answer. Keep that in mind. That's your time saving, by the way. Now let's go to question 3, or statement C. I'm happy most of you did not choose this, because then you're completely on the wrong track if you had chosen this. XP and EC are not connected with each other. The problem is, I do not know whether they're connected or not. It's not that they are connected or they're not connected. In reality, I am not sure whether they're connected or not, because the author's perspective, we don't know anywhere in this passage. That's the reason why option D is wrong. Option C is wrong. Option D, 11% of you chose option D. But the key word is, in this option choice, there's a mention of causality, cause-effect relationship. Do we know that XP is the cause of ethnocentrism? Is it given somewhere? There's no way you should have chosen this, right? The 11% of you chose option D. Do you see why it cannot be the correct answer? There's no causality. How do you know that XP is causing an EC? That's not mentioned anywhere. You cannot infer it from anywhere. Good. Which kind of brings us to the last line, which is actually true. And the reason this is the correct inference is, this is the only line in the passage which the author agrees with. And we know he agrees with it because he's given this as a fact, which he also agrees with. And this, by the way, how would you get this? If you had summarized this. Imagine you did not even summarize and understand what this entire definition was. If you're not even summarized it, good luck choosing option E. This is the definition of XP as given by the author. And the author is a logical person. If he's given that definition and he's presented to you as the definition, that means he believes in it. It's the only valid inference in this question. You can consider the 700 level at this phase. So everybody clear? Everybody excited? Do you guys feel that you learned something interesting? Correct option is E. Good. So will you try to apply this now when we are going to do the full length passage? Now we are going to do the 700 level OG passage. Proof of pudding is in the eating. You're going to try to apply this. So again, I reiterate again, you do not need to be an English Pandit. What you actually need is the kind of immersion. Again, we do not know what XP is. We are not from this background. What did we do? We connected information. We broke down big sentences. We focused on keywords. Deemed to be decided, this one keyword decided whether option B or option E is correct. It's as simple as that. Even helped you connect line 1 to line 2. It gave you a good picture of what the author is actually trying to do. That summarization which you did, it gave you the correct answer. That's the point. If all this is clear, now before I hand over the session to Shraddha, again, for those of you who are looking for a study plan, let me just bring it up here. It could be useful for all of you, who, especially those of you who already have a date in mind. Like, okay, I want to take GMAT in the next couple of months. It's good to have a plan. Our guys can help you with this. We do this for free. Check it out. It might help you. Personalized milestones, very precise estimates of how much time you need. If you are somebody who's already very, very strong with RC, you probably don't need to spend as much time on RC. But if you have to spend, if you're very weak with probability and permutations and combinations, then that will show in your personalized study plan. You will end up spending a little more time on that. So it will be planned that way. Our team will also help you with what kind of metrics do you need to track. How do you know that you're doing well? How do you know that you're on course? What do you need to do if you steer off course? We can help you with that. With that, let me bring in Shraddha to take over the next part of the session. All the best, guys. I'll see you after the passage is done. Shraddha, over to you.
Hello, everyone. If you guys can hear me, could you please put in your responses as yes? Please pardon my voice today. I'm a little under the weather. But nonetheless, here, doing the session. Okay, so now what we are going to see is a full-length passage. It's an official passage, deemed difficult, but I'll leave that decision on to you when you do the passage. So whatever we've read so far, whatever we've learned so far, focusing on the passage, getting immersed into the passage, taking notes at the right time, most importantly, or one of the most important things, definitely paying attention to the keywords. That's very, very important to figure out the relationship among various informations presented in the passage. So here you go. I'm going to show you the passage. Take about 4 minutes to read the passage, and then I'll activate a poll to understand whether you're done reading the passage or not. So your time starts now. Go ahead. All right, 4 minutes are over. Those who are still reading the passage can take 30 more seconds, finish this off, and then let me bring in the poll for the first question. In the meanwhile, those who are done reading can click on still solving so that I know how many of you are participating in this one. A little more participation in the passage question, please. We have close to 200 people and I have not even gotten 100 responses. So okay. So let me show you the first question and let me bring in the passage first so that you have it for your reference. All right. Just a little bit change on the screen as to the elements that you view. Here is the passage. It's a scrollable pod. You can use the scroller to move up and down to reach to the pertinent portion in the passage. And here comes your first question, the primary reason question, the main point question. I'm giving you about 2 minutes to solve this question, and your time starts now. All right. We've spent 2 minutes on this one. Let's now wind this one up. Last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, any last minute selections? I just see the number of polls changing between two answer choices, nothing else. Okay, so here I end the poll, and let me take this poll away for the bit. We are now going to solve The second question, we'll take, there are 5 questions. We'll take all the 5 questions together and then we will get into the discussion. So let's click on still solving. Let's quickly get this done so that I can show you the second question. Please don't select any of the answer choices. Click on still solving. Few more votes. I have 1 vote for C, 1 for D, 1 for E. This is for question number 2 that you've not seen yet. So please make sure that you unselect any of the answer choices that you might have by mistake. All right. Now I'm going to show you question number 2. Which of the following can be inferred? So your second question is your inference question, and your time starts now. All right. 2 minutes over. Can we start winding up this one so that we can move on to our next question? Last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, ending the poll here. All right, now I'm getting on the screen the poll for our third question for the passage. So let's begin by clicking on still solving. Still solving. Again, this is the poll for the third question. The question is not there on your screen now, but yes, very fast. Good job. Your third question again is an inference question. It can be inferred from the passage. I'm reading the first few words of the question just to make sure that you're looking at the right question, because at some of your ends, it may take a few seconds for the screen to stabilize. So just to make sure that you are on the right question. Question number 3, your 2 minutes start now. This one seems to have confused more or less more than the other questions. You guys are taking a little bit more time with this one. Give you some more time. All right. Let's finish this up in last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, last minute guesses. If you want to do, just click something and let's move on. Any last minute guesses? All right, ending the poll here. And let me change the poll. Now what you see on your screen is the poll for question number 4. So we'll again do the ritual, still solving. Please click on still solving. Great. This is for passage question 4. Let me get a few more responses for still solving so that I can show you question number 4. Okay, let's go ahead. Here's question number 4, and it says the author mentions patients' ages. So that's your question number 4, and your time starts now. Pretty good job with this one. Last 10 seconds. Let's wind this one up, and then we'll have our very last question for this session. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So I'm ending the poll here. Getting the poll for our very last question. So again, click on still solving. Once I get more responses, I'll show you the question. So please click on still solving. I see one vote for choice D. Whoever it is, please remove that. Great. So this could be a little tricky question. Make sure that you pay attention to the question, to the answer choices. Do your analysis nicely before you make a selection, okay? That's a little heads up from my end. So there we go. The very last question on your screen, question 5, it says, according to the passage, which of the following? Those are the first few words of this question. Take 2 minutes to solve this one, and I'll see you at the end of this question. As expected, this seems to be the most confusing question, so take your time. I'm going to allow you a little bit more time to solve this one. I don't want the timing aspect to be responsible for you not getting to the right answer, so take your time. All right, last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, those who are still solving can just take a guess, something that you are feeling more gravitated to. Just select that and let's finish this one up. Okay, so here, first off, let me take away the passage and I'm activating, let me end this poll here. Okay, so let me bring in the short answer poll and let me hear from you. What do you have to say about this passage? How did you like it? You didn't like it? You found it easy, difficult, medium, difficult to process? We'll discuss each and every question. So yeah, you'll see all the answers, so don't worry about that. Okay. Think I got everything. Awesome. Passage was okay, but questions were confusing. I totally agree to that. At some point, the information in the passage is very navigable, very, very easy. All right, here I go. By my microphone got turned off. Can you all hear me? Yes or no poll, please. All right. So here we go. Okay. So let's straight away get into the passage and try to understand what this passage is saying, or how did I analyze this passage. Okay. So let's just do that. It says F&M, or sorry, it says Frazier and Mosteller assert that medical research could be improved by a move toward larger, simpler clinical trials of medical treatments. Sorry. So this is the first line I read, and then I stop here because many a times in RC passages, the first line, it has the gist of the entire passage as to what we are going to read. So when I say FN Frazier and Mosteller, I basically shorten it up to F and M because I don't want to repeat this phrase over and over again. F and M is shorter, it's going to save my time, and I understand what it stands for. So then the other word that really catches my attention is the word assert. The author is not saying that F&M said something, they made a point, or they indicated something, or they proposed something. The word here has been used, assert. So that means there is a lot of emphasis and there's a lot of surety about what F&M are talking about. They exactly know what they are talking about. So that was one point that caught my attention. Another point that caught my attention was that it talks about making the medical researches larger. That's the first aspect of it. And then simpler. That's the second aspect. So this also caught my attention, that something that has been proposed to make larger, how could it be simpler? So this was my peg to hang on to the passage. In other words, this was the point that got me immersed into the passage. So it's a good exercise if you can consciously find a peg or a point that takes you into the passage, because we need that mental shift, focusing completely on the passage to be able to understand what the passage is saying. So moving on. Okay, so at this point, I will also make a few predictions, because FNM are talking about improving medical research. In that case, the passage should also talk something about the current way of doing these researches, and then present the proposals made by FNM to make us understand better how is it that FNM suggestions can make these researches better, right? There is a comparison, definitely. So we need to read both the aspects in order to understand how these suggestions can make these trials or can make these researches better. So that's what the passage is saying. Currently, researchers collect far more background information on patients than is strictly required for their trials. And then the author puts in another layer of comparison. It is very important in RC to pay attention to these comparison points. Why? Because many a times you will see questions around these comparisons. Basically, there are two kinds of information that we can read: an absolute information and a relative information. Whenever we see comparisons, these are relative information. So this cognizance has to be there when the author is trying to present the relative information or the absolute information, because when there is a question around this in answer choices, the relative information can be presented as an absolute information, as a trap, and we don't want to fall for that. And that's why it is very, very important to be cognizant of these kind of information. So what this passage is saying here: substantially more than hospital collects. The only reason why the author has presented this comparison here is to emphasize on the fact that, look, the current clinical researches, they collect way more data than required. Whatever the author is talking here, far more background information on patients than is strictly required, that point is substantiated in this point by saying that they collect way more data. So this is the only purpose of this comparison here. Moving on, I see my next keyword over here, thereby. It presents result of the action of collecting far more data. Thereby, as a result, what happens? Escalating costs of data collection, storage, and analysis. So the cause is they collect a lot more data than required. The effect is the cost goes up for data collection, data storage, and data analysis. Another keyword, although, presents contrast. Although limiting information collection could increase the risk that researchers will overlook facts relevant to a study. Now, somebody may pose this question that, hey, if you are suggesting that let's not collect so much data, what if in the process of limiting the data, the researchers miss out on those variables that could be relevant for their research? FNM has an answer for that as well. They contend that such risk never entirely eliminable from research. FNM tells you clearly that, hey, that risk of overlooking a particular factor, you cannot avoid that risk altogether. No matter how much data you collect, you still have that little scope of overlooking a particular variable that could be relevant to your research. However, FNM says that that risk would still be small in most studies. So they are aware that this could be a point of contentions for some people, but then F&M, they have their answer ready for that, that hey, in most of the cases, in most of the studies, even if you limit the data that you collect, that risk is going to be very, very small. Only in research on entirely new treatments are new and unexpected variables likely to arise. So they put forward also that where do you need to do so? Where do you need to collect a lot of data? Only for those research totally for a new treatment, something, an ailment that has never been studied. In those cases, yes, you may have to collect a lot of data, but the ailments that have already been studied, there is no need to collect so much data. Okay, so this is what the first part of the first passage talks about. Now, if we try to correlate all this information with my first sentence, how did the author start? F&M suggests taking moves towards making these research larger and simpler. If I were to ask you which aspect of the proposal this passage is talking about, what would be your answer? Please take 2 short answer poll and answer this question. Is it about making the research simpler or making the research larger? What are we talking about? We are talking about making the research simpler. Absolutely correct. We are talking about making the research simpler. Why? Because in this particular paragraph, the author is talking about, hey, don't collect so much data, collect less data. So this is not about collecting a lot of data. It's making it simpler. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next part. F&M propose not only, my another keyword. When I say not only, I know that but also will also follow. And then what happens is that the author is basically talking about 2 aspects of the topic that's being discussed. So researchers limit data selection of individual patients, but also that researchers enroll more patients in clinical trials. So this point was about making the larger research simpler that we read in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, it is about making the research larger. What will be the consequence? Again, comes thereby. What will be the result of enrolling more patients? Obtaining a more representative sample of the total population with the disease under study. So at this point in time, with this statement, we can infer that the way the present researches are done, maybe their results are not representative. That's why F&M suggests that, hey, include more people. That way, the samples or the research done or the results obtained will be more representative. And then the author describes the same. Often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments besides those being studied. A treatment judged successful under these ideal conditions can then be evaluated under normal conditions. It is very, very important that you understood this distinction between the ideal condition and normal condition. What is the ideal condition? When the participant in the trial has only that particular ailment. But to come to think about it, how many times does it happen that a human body human body undergoes only one disease at one point in time? That's really rare, right? The normal condition is generally we have a few things going on. So that's what the author is saying, that if you make studies larger, that means include people, not only those people who have that particular ailment, but people who have other ailment also, then the efficacy of the treatment that you have already come about by taking into consideration only those people who had only that particular ailment, you will be able to evaluate the efficacy or the efficiency of that particular treatment in normal conditions, also on people who have other ongoing things. So this is another plus point of the suggestion made by FNM. Okay. All right. Reading the last bit. Broadening the range of trial participants, FNM suggests, so this is FNM's suggestion. Broadening the range of trial participants would enable researchers to evaluate a treatment's efficacy for diverse patients under various conditions. That are first part, diverse patients under various conditions. Oh, sorry, not here. And to evaluate its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. So making the trials larger will help researchers in two ways. They can evaluate a treatment's efficacy for diverse patients, because now they are including those people also who have other medical conditions going on. And then the next one is its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. And then the author presents the example for patients' subgroups. The value of a treatment for a progressive disease may vary according to a patient's stage of disease. So how can we divide this subgroup? First subgroup can be on the basis of the progressive disease. For example, cancer is a progressive disease. It is divided into several stages, and every stage has its own treatment. So if the trials incorporate more people, maybe one treatment, the efficacy of one treatment could be assessed or evaluated on different stages. Another subgroup is patients' ages may also affect a treatment's efficacy, because we all know that, for example, a dose for, say, a paracetamol or a fever reducer, the dose for an adult is not the same as the dose for an infant or for a toddler or for a teenager. So the dosage of a medicine or the treatment also varies according to the patient's age. So that's why FNM suggests that, hey, include more people. By doing so, you will be able to get more representative data. Okay, so this is, in a nutshell, this is what we saw in our question. The passage starts by the suggestion of FNM. The first part talks about how the trials can be made simpler. FNM has all its argument in place. The second part talks about how it can be made larger, and the plus points of that suggestion has been presented. All right, so now all my a little impatient students, here we go. Now we come to the questions. The first question talks about the main point question. It clearly says primarily concerned, another way of saying primary purpose. So let me show you the result here. And you guys did pretty well. Choice D indeed is the correct answer. I don't think there is need to discuss any of the answer choices, because the answers is so clear. In case if anybody has any question or any doubt about any of the answer choices, the explanations are also there on the screen. You can post that question on the Q&A pod. Okay, let us move on to the second question. Which of the following can be inferred? So definitely we are dealing with an inference question here from the passage about the study of the category of patients referred to in the lines, often research restricts study participation. So basically we need to infer some information about this particular statement in the passage. So what is this part talking about? Over here. So basically over here the author is talking about the studies, how the current clinical trials are presented. And they say that it is only done on people that are not suffering from any other ailment besides those that is being studied. And then we read this part: a treatment judged successful under these can be evaluated under normal conditions. So basically, as we did while reading our passage also, we understood that the results of the current clinical trials may not be very representative, because they are done only in ideal conditions and not in normal conditions. So their applicability or their result could be very limited. So these are the few points that we can infer about this particular statement. And let's see, how did we do in this question? Am I looking? Yes. So choice A, indeed, again, 53% of the class went with choice A. That means you did understand that, yes, its findings might have limited applicability. And pay attention to the verbiage of this thing: might have limited applicability. Again, relative information, because again, the passage also does not say anything in absolute terms. It can say it can do that, it can do this. So that's what makes choice A the correct answer over here. What was the first answer? Okay, for the first question, choice D was the correct answer. All right. Okay, let's move on to, okay, let me just clear answers here. Any particular answer choice that you want to discuss? Everything is there on the screen, and I don't see too much discrepancy over here. So I assume that you guys understand everything. All right. So with this, let's quickly move on to question number 3. Again, almost the same line, but this time the question has been changed. What is the advantage of the clinical trial over the suggestion of FNM? Okay, little tweak in the tone of the question, because so far we've heard that FNM's suggestion is actually going to make the trials better, but still this question is asking us that, hey, what is that one point that you can classify as an advantage over the suggestion of FNM? So what is that? The current medical trials take or include only those people that suffer only from that particular ailment, right? So it means that they are dealing with very limited amount of information. They are not, but if they include a lot of people, if they improve the scope of the participants in these researches, then they will have a lot more data to look into. So if at all we can call it an advantage, then the only advantage is that they are dealing with limited amount of data in the current situation. And that's what is the correct answer for this question. And well, you guys did phenomenally well in this question as well. Choice C is the clear winner over here. So good job. Once again, I'll quickly ask you, if you need clarification on any answer choice, you can ask it, otherwise we'll move on. Why not A? Accuracy is not discussed. Take a look at this. This point has been played a lot, I think in 3 questions out of 5 that we saw. Nowhere in the passage the accuracy of research has been mentioned. We are only talking about improvement in the current research. Improvement, not accuracy, making the research better. That's why accuracy just does not come here. Whether the treatment is accurate or not, whether the result is accurate or not, the passage does not talk about that at all. It only talks about making the clinical trials better. That's all. Okay, I'll quickly take choice D. It would help researcher to identify subgroups of patients. Well, Why identify subgroups? They are not doing anything with the subgroups. There is no question of subgroups. The clinical trials currently done only selects those people who have that ailment. So there is no question of subgroups. They are not doing it in order to identify subgroups. No, there is no cause and effect over here at all that it will help researchers to identify subgroups. The idea of subgroups is not even there in the current clinical trials, and that's what FNM is proposing, that hey, if you make your trials larger, you will have people from different subgroups, and then the efficacy of the treatment can be evaluated better. Okay. Any questions you can put in the Q&A pod, and Harsha will be able to answer that. Let's move on to our next question. The author mentions patients' ages in the line, patients' ages may also affect a treatment's efficacy primarily in order to do what? This is what we call a function question. Function questions ask you to identify the purpose of a particular entity, maybe a phrase, a sentence, why it has been used in the passage, with what purpose, with what intention has the author used that point in the passage. So we are talking about patients' ages. This is the very last line in the sentence, and it is mentioning this because we know that the current clinical trials are done only on the limited patient subgroup, but the patient's age has been mentioned, that if patients from different ages can be incorporated, then the efficacy of the treatment can be judged in a normal condition, right? In a more broader aspect. So I think all of you got this one because you guys did really good with this question. Answers came in quickly, and most of you, see, absolutely a win-win. Maximum number of votes. In fact, this is the question where you did the best out of all the 5 questions. 74% accuracy for this one. So I understand that all of you got this one. Okay, with this, let's quickly move on to question 5. And here we are saying, according to the passage, which of the following describes the result of the way in which researchers generally conduct clinical trials? When we read the word generally, we are talking about current research trials, right? And what is the author is trying to find out through this question? What is the effect of the current research? So two effects we see. In the first paragraph, we see that because they collect more data, the cost increases. That's the first cause and effect that we find in our paragraph number 1. In paragraph number 2, because the clinical trials are conducted in ideal conditions, the application is very, very limited. So these are the 2 cause and effects about 2 different aspects of these current research. So any answer choice that talks about either of them or both of them together will be the correct answer. Now, this one question seemed to be confusing for most of you because you guys took a lot of time, and the correct answer choice over here is A. However, people who chose choice C is not far behind. You know, just 1 vote. If I go by the numbers, we got 50 votes for A, but 49 votes for C. So it was as popular as A. Let's see what is the problem with choice C. And this is the only choice that we will discuss for this question. They avoid the risk of overlooking variables. Now, we know from the passage so let's first take a look at the word avoid. What does the word avoid mean? To eliminate, to neglect, to overlook, right? These are the meanings of the word avoid: to overlook, to neglect. But in the first passage, in the first paragraph, it is clearly written that no matter how many variables you take into consideration, no matter how much background data you collect, there will still be a chance that you may overlook certain variables. So this is definitely not the effect of the clinical trial. Firstly, this point has not been even mentioned as an effect. So that's the first point to go about. And secondly, the passage clearly says that no matter how much data you collect, this one point cannot be eliminated completely. So this is not the correct answer. Many of you reject choice A because you thought that, hey, the effect says that the cost goes up for storing, say it starts with the collection of the data plus the storing of the data and the analysis of data. Three aspects have been mentioned, that cost goes up for storage, for analysis, and for collection. But this part is only talking about storage. It's not talking about collection and analysis. Even if it doesn't, is it not true that storing information costs more money? It does, right? Yes, the passage talks about aspect A, aspect B, and aspect C. But this choice only talks about aspect B. But it is still correct. The choice A chooses not to talk about A and C. But that doesn't mean that B does not happen. This is still a valid point, and that's why choice A is correct. So if you rejected choice A because you were expecting to see both the collection and analysis in choice A, you did not process the information presented in choice A correctly. That's where you faltered. Okay? Why not D? Because they attempt to analyze too much information, they overlook facts. This cause and effect is not mentioned. It is not mentioned in the passage. The only cause, see, don't lose your focus on the question. According to the passage, which of the following is the result? Pay attention, pay close attention to the question here. According to the passage, what is the cause and effect? The cause is because they collect more data, the effect thereby. You remember when we did our passage analysis, we did focus on that keyword over there, thereby escalating cost of storage, analysis, and collection. So that's the only explicit cause and effect mentioned in the passage, and that's what we go by. Choice D is not presented as cause and effect at all in the sentence. Okay? Can you bring in validation and focus in option A? I am not sure if I understand that question, validation and focus. So if you could just be a little more explicit about that. At which level were those questions? I would say 700, because again, for me, the passage is pretty simpler. You know, understanding the meaning conveyed by the passage was simpler, but each and every question had its own tweak. You know, two questions on the same line, but the questions were so structured that you would not have gotten what the question is asking if you did not read the question properly and understood what exactly this question is talking about. Advantage of the current situation. Nowhere explicitly in the passage any advantage of the current trial has been mentioned, but the question tricks you with that question over there, right? So you had to do your thinking over there. So that's how so your comprehension and analysis do not stop with the passage. You'll have to carry forward that reading and comprehension to your questions and to your answer choices as well. Okay? Can I get the PDF? You'll definitely get it at the end of the thing. Validate the focus on storage of information. I told you, if we go back in the passage, what does the passage say? It says that because the current clinical trials collect so much data, they escalate the cost of collecting data, storing data, and analysis of data. So the money is spent on all three aspects, right? The money is spent on storage, money is spent on collection, money is spent on analysis, right? But this choice A only is talking about storage of information. It is not saying that the cost for collection does not go up. It does not say that the cost for analysis does not go up. All it is saying is that the cost of storage goes up, and it is valid, right? It does go up. This cost does go up. Does that make sense now? Let's see who. All right. Yeah. So you did say yes. Okay. So with this, I guess my part is over here. If any one of you have any more questions. So Swati, you are saying choice C says avoid, not eliminate. Well, avoid means to overlook. That's one. You avoid somebody, you overlook somebody, you don't want to get on their path. And that's what the passage is also saying, that you cannot overlook that act completely, right? You cannot overlook that aspect completely. There will still be some point, some variable that you might miss, no matter how much information you collect. Okay? So with this, thank you so very much for being so patient. I know it's getting late there, but we've got to do what we've got to do. So Harsha, please take over. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. So thanks a lot, Shraddha. I think that would have explained a lot. Let's just ensure that you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Just put a yes if you can hear me before I get into anything else. Perfect. So we are at the fag end of the session. Divyanshu, you're asking a question regarding the GMAT study plan. There are no slots available. All right, I told you they do fill up fast. So just be on the lookout. We should have slots opening up again. But yeah, just keep checking on that. All right. Perfect. So let me do a quick check. How many of you got all the questions right? So let me put this as a poll. How many questions did you get correct out of these 5? So this is a 700 level. So remember, it's not easy. As Shraddha pointed out, the passage is not overly difficult to comprehend. It's not as dense as the examples that we did, right? The passage is not overly dense, but the questions are not easy. There's a lot of trick points in the questions. So good. So a lot of you got 3 questions and 4 questions right. You're on track. Pretty soon you will be there. Great. All right. So let me remove a lot of this. How are you feeling? Are you guys a little more confident now after going through, I'm sure, what has been a fairly grueling session? I told you at the start, it's an application heavy session. It's gonna take a little bit from you. Good. And I keep bringing this slide all over again because you have to remember what it takes is 100% immersion. Again, not everybody understands what clinical trials mean. For example, efficacy is an extremely technical medical term as far as clinical trials are concerned. We never really got into what it exactly means, but it did make a difference, right? We're still able to solve these questions. Keep that in mind. Read the passage slowly, don't skim, break down the sentences, keywords, summarize. Those are the important points. Again, I'm bringing back to the session what we started the session with. Have that motivation. Getting a 730 plus, it's not easy, but it's not as difficult as it looks. All you need to do is get that 90th percentile. Through the session, we kind of saw how we go about it. Let's address the elephant in the room. How many of you by now are feeling, hey man, how are you gonna do all this in 3.5-4 minutes? This, I'm sure, is the elephant in a room. What do you mean by read slowly in a test like this? How do you do all this in 3 to 4 minutes flat, especially for complex passages? Exactly. Let me address that concern right now. For all of you who have been patient, I'm going to address that question right now. So what exactly happens is when you're doing RC this way, when you're doing the slow initial reading, once you've reached a level of ability, I'm not saying right now, but once you've reached a fair level of ability, it varies from person to person. For some people, it takes around 6 passages. For some people, it takes around 15 passages. It's only about a little bit of practice, not too much of practice. Now, this does not require you to solve like 10,000 problems. There's some passages. But once you build a little bit of ability here, what you'll start seeing is those shorter passages you typically take only 3 minutes to read. This way, and I'm not talking about skimming, read with this level of detail. It only takes you around 3 minutes. And because you've understood the passage so well, solving each and every question takes you less than equal to 1 minute. Do you remember in the passages that we discussed how I told you once you understood what deemed to be is, answering that, choosing that correct option or incorrect option was simply 5 seconds or less than 5 seconds? Do you guys see that? That's what we did, right? I told you once you understood considered to be deemed to be, you eliminated option B in 5 seconds. Eventually what happens is, because your understanding of the passage is this good, any question on the GMAT RC takes you less than equal to 1 minute tops. And one is stretching it. Sometimes it does takes you 20 seconds. For a tough passage, what if your passage is a monster? Of course, once in a while, especially if you're doing well on the test, you'll see that as well. And what we see is, typically it takes around 4 minutes. If it's a really complex passage, a little more, let's say 4.5 minutes maximum. And here's the beauty. How many of you have seen that when the passage is really, really complex, usually the questions are easier? So this is something we have seen time and again. When the passage is extremely complex, most of the times you see that the questions are somewhat easy. So you don't even take 1 minute for a lot of those questions in that case. Once you reach that level of ability, 0.75 minutes for each and every question. Invariably, around 7 or maximum 8 minutes is all you take to solve any RC passage if you're using this method. How does it compare with your typical skimming through or speed reading? Pretty much the same, slightly better in most cases, and otherwise pretty much the same if you're taking 8 minutes. Why? If you're skimming through, let's say you take 2 minutes to read the passage, but man, when you go to the option choices, that's where you get all the problems. You will always be stuck between some option B and some option C. You'll always find that you're stuck between some options, and the reason you're stuck is something in the passage is still not clear to you. And there you spend 1.5 minutes, sometimes you spend 3 minutes stuck on that one problem because you're fixated on it. And that's how your timing goes for a toss as far as RC is concerned. If on the other hand, if you read slowly, you have this confidence here. Another aspect here which people don't really talk about as far as timing is concerned is, in this method, when I reject an incorrect option choice, I'm extremely confident about it. I have no doubts about it. It doesn't play on my mind as I go to the next question, which is CR or SC or whatever it is. That makes a lot of difference. Otherwise, your brain, at the back of your brain, you're always wondering, hey, did I screw up that question or did I get it right? A lot of you who have taken a few mocks would have felt this, right? Your mind goes back to the previous place where, hey, did I get that right? And that again kills your test performance. Read slowly, read the way we have tried to explain today. You'll see a lot of those problems will not be a problem anymore. So think about it. And again, don't just take our word for it. We really mean it when we say that we have had students who have performed, who have shown to us time and again that this works. So I'm putting a couple of links your way. So these are a couple of debriefs where this one is from Anastasia. She tells us she scored a 740. She went to Columbia. e-GMAT. You should read all the text. As long as you understand the whole paragraph, look at this. It takes only 30 to 50 seconds to answer each question. This is not us. This is one of our students who did well. Another example, this one is Nishant. Let me make sure that the other link is also here for you. We also have video interviews. So you have debriefs, you also have video interviews if you want a more direct approach. You want to hear what these guys had said. These are guys who have been on the journey that you're in right now, have gone through it successfully. So you can listen to them. What you have to realize is that you have enough time. Again, GMAT is not a test of time. It's not a test of vocabulary. It's a test of logical ability. Do not stress about the timing. Look at what he says. 3+ minutes to read and comprehend a short passage. 4+ minutes to read a long passage. It has the initial investment of time. That's what we are saying. Slow reading initially. But after that, any question, 45 to 60 seconds flat. This is what we are trying to tell you. So check out these links. You'll see proof of what we are talking about. And let's also talk about Nishant's ESR. In Nishant's case, here we have the ESR. including your passage reading time. In reading comprehension, look at the time he's taken. This is actual data. We've not fudged anything here. Reading comprehension on average 2 minutes per question. This is including your passage reading time. So 2 minutes per question, that is 8 minutes per passage, done. This is as good a time as you can hope for through any other method. But the advantage is when Nishant was choosing an answer here, he was 100% confident about it. No scope for confusion. So the slow reading of the passage, it does not take any more time than your current method of speed reading. Those are his words. On the contrary, it gives you that confidence during the exam that you really need. Dr. Rohit Singh Malan improved from V27 to V41. I was forced to read the passage multiple times earlier. Some of you are still doing that, but I hope from this session on you would be able to avoid that. The need to read the passages repeatedly came down significantly. And this helped him in his CR also. And this is something I can personally attest to. I started my e-GMAT journey with CR, then I went into RC. But once I had done RC, my CR also improved. And it's because I started reading a particular way. These habits of reading that we are trying to inculcate, it will help you throughout. It helped me improve my CR as well. If you go to a YouTube channel, you'll see over 150 plus instances. Do check it out. You are going to get the session PDF. Let me just bring that in as well. So that's about it. As far as the session is done, session is concerned, we are done. Let me ensure that you have any other links, any other questions, guys. You can just please feel free to put it in the Q&A as well. Let me bring you the session PDF for all of you. And we already talked at length about the study plan. So one of you pointed out that as of now there are no slots available, but the link is here. Keep checking it. Slots might become available soon. You never know. It's just the beginning of the month. Any other general feedback, anything you want to say as well, we'll be happy. Upcoming sessions. So tomorrow we have a quant workshop session. Coming Saturday we have a CR pre-thinking session. And as far as main point is concerned, you guys have access to the free trial. So if you log in as a free trial student, you have access to the first 2 main point files as well. Make sure you go through that. AWA, I think you should just write to Rajat or write to support. We should be able to help you. In this discussion, I would not be able to touch upon that. Links to sign up to the next sessions. All right, since you pointed that out, just give me 1 sec. So for practice, do go through the, if you're not an e-GMAT student, do go through the free trial. So you have main point files, you can practice with those to begin with, because those are also passages at the end of the day. You have to apply the same concepts. If you're an e-GMAT student, you already have access to all this. So these are the links you can register, but we will also provide that one. Most of these free sessions we do on the weekends. Session was very helpful. Any other questions, guys? Overall, any other feedback? Questions were super tough. All right, perfect. So with that, I'll stop recording. And if there are any other questions, we can take.